Good morning, everybody. My name is Ron Horshevsky, and I'm very excited to welcome you all to our TED Talks. Just curious if anybody knows what TED is an acronym for. Yes?
Technology, Entertainment, Design.
Technology, Entertainment, and Design. Very good. Yeah, it's not named after some guy named Ted. So welcome to our first TED Talk, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this. We have three great speakers, very energetic speakers. Our first speaker has been on Air Force One 5 times. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Vernon Brown. He's an energizer, a connection speaker. Vernon's presentation today is how to get fired up and energized about your career, even if you are O.D.D. In his previous career, Vernon saw many of his colleagues and associates tired and not being engaged. Vernon acknowledged that there is a better way, and that mindset is what led to the creation of the O.D.D. method, which he will share with you today. Vernon, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? That's perfect. I need everyone to do me a huge favor. I'm going to ask that question again. I want you to respond with some energy for me. So what? Good morning. Great. No, I want to hear. We're in Nashville. I'm having a great time here. So there we go. So when I'm going to ask that question again, I want everyone to say better than average and better than most. Cool? How are we doing? Better than average, better than most. Perfect. And again, this is not a cult. I was letting people know that yesterday. But I just want to get everybody woken up, excuse me. So as this amazing man, Ron here, who I found out is my brother from another, I am Vernon Brown, and I'm a happiness coach. And people tend to ask me immediately, what exactly is a happiness coach? I am not a drug dealer. There is no opium being sold here, but what it's about is being an architect and not an archaeologist. Talking about what's wrong does not get things done. All it does is get you busy. And I'm all about being productive. So, as we both know, how to get fired up and energized about your career, even if you are ODD. No, you will not look like this, but those pants look great because they're red. My favorite color is red, but you will be excited about this. I love acronyms. I keep it very simple. The first thing, whenever we're in our world, we succeed and we're connecting with people, we need to observe. When I say observe, really observe who you are and how you are showing up. Make sure that the clothes that you are wearing are actually yours. And let me explain. We are all, don't make me laugh, we are all born the same exact way. Speechless and naked. Everything else we learn along the way. It's things that we have observed. And no matter where you are in life, you pick that up from somebody in some way, shape, or form. This morning when I went to the gym, I'm got to go to the gym, got to kind of shake the energy out in the morning. And I'm on a treadmill. And I'm sitting there, I got my iPod going, and I'm just jamming out. I'm an R&B type of guy, shockingly. I'm an R&B type of guy. I don't know why you're laughing, but I'm an R&B type guy. And I'm just walking on the treadmill, just, all right, Vernon, we got this. We're going to have a great time. And this lady comes in, and she gets on the treadmill next to me. And we're just kind of doing the same pace. About 2 minutes in, all of a sudden, she starts getting like this. So I go from, all right, let me change this Marvin Gaye. Let me turn this on to moves like Jagger, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying to walk faster, and then she starts getting it. I mean, just going. And so I'm like, all right, I need some rap music or something. Next thing you know, I went from a walk to a run. And it's the same way that we show up in our lives. Whoever you're surrounding yourself with, who you're observing, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are matching them. So observe who your audience is, who your crowd is, who your people are. I'm always reminding clients and audiences, audit your circle because you're picking up some things from them and you're not even aware of it. Make sense? Decide a new approach. It's a decision. That's all it is. Who you are is based on a decision. It's not really anything else other than that. I'm a very quiet person. I don't talk much. I don't say much. I'm not even that funny. But before I come out and speak, I literally just say, who do I want to be? Do I want to be this guy? Or do I want to be this guy? This guy is quiet, as I mentioned earlier. This guy, This guy likes to have a good time. He likes to laugh and joke. He likes to play. So I get to decide. And it's the same exact thing that we all can do. We can decide who we want to be. It's just as quick as that. And it's the questions that you ask yourself when you want to decide. How would Tony Stark, I make a lot of Marvel comic references, by the way. How would Tony Stark do a presentation? Would he get up here and be really flamboyant? Would he get up here and just be really quiet and subtle? No, he would just get up here and just play. And it's something, whenever I work with any leader, it's something that they are unconsciously deciding. Always think about who you want to be and then become that person. And if you're not, if you don't have that necessary skill set, start practicing so you can bring it into your life. Make sense? Mm-hmm. And the final D, and this is the big one, you've got to dream. As we get older, we forget how important dreaming is. When we were this big, we used to dream all the time. And dreaming, by the way, is another word for thinking. And when we get this big, we think it's foolish, we think it's ridiculous, we forget about it. A lot of the work that I end up doing with leaders is making them think bigger, dream bigger, and they show up bigger. When we think, when we dream, it takes this part of us and it separates us from a problem. It stops making us go into this click response, stimulus response method. We just have to sit down and start asking ourselves these questions. What am I really seeing here? Is this someone that I would like to be? Is this person effective? Is this person influential? And sit back and think about it. Don't judge, don't get critical, because that's what happens when our energy gets a little low. And I spoke on low energy yesterday, but to bring this up about low energy, when our energy gets low, we stop thinking and we start reacting. We've got to just be and silent ourselves, schedule time to think. In fact, everyone here, if you could take 30 minutes a week just to think, I promise you a lot of the ways that we show up, a lot of ways we show up that are ineffective will start becoming more effective. Am I getting through to you all? Yeah. This is a good time for a great story. So when I first started out, and I sat down with a lot of different leaders, and this was a CPA conference, and they all had their big, busy practices. And it was just like you all, just kind of set up like this. And they were having a hard time really getting through to people. And they couldn't figure out why the employees weren't responding well. They couldn't figure out why things weren't getting done. And they had all these theories, and they couldn't figure out what exact the common denominator was. And when I asked them, I said, who are you in business for? And of course, everyone said the blank answer, oh, we're there for our customers. And I said, who can you make this about? And they kind of looked at me with this puzzled look. Like, well, what do you mean, who can we make this about? I said, from my standpoint, it looks like you're making this about yourselves. It's like, have you forgotten how impactful what your jobs are and what your careers are? You're shaping people's lives. You're helping them out. When you make things about you, that's when you tend to flounder. That's when we stop becoming effective. But when you can sit back and think and make it more about other people, that's when you really get out there and show up as your best, most powerful, most effective, most communicative self. Sit back and think. Just really sit back and dream. Dreaming is so essential.
Great job. That was great. So TED, Technology, Entertainment, Design. Let's go with the O.D.D. method. Okay, so thank you. So the O.D.D. So we got observe, decide, and dream. All right, great. Well, thank you very much. And you ask him about the Air Force One stories. So the next gentleman has some great stories as well. He won a karaoke contest in New Orleans singing Wanted Dead or Alive, which he's agreed to sing. It says right here. And even better than that, he's found his way onto the Dierks Bentley tour bus at some point in his career. So that's another story, but he's going to tell us a different story today. But Ryan Smith is the Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Capital Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. In his presentation, Appreciation and Recognition, Your Role as a Leader, Ryan will discuss the impact of appreciation and recognition in the workplace. and share some easy tactics and practical ideas for work and life. Please welcome Ryan Smith.
I'm not going to sing. That's not going to happen. Maybe at the end if we have time. First of all, I got a bone to pick with you, dude. We did a prep call for these things. We were on a call and we were talking about how this was going to work. You promised me you weren't going to be good right before me.
You had the better story.
So thanks for not honoring that, Vernon. I appreciate it. So Ron talked about who I am professionally. This is who I am personally. This is what motivates me. And for any of you that were at the 8 o'clock topic, same thing I talked about there. We all have roles as leaders, but I think my most important job is what I do outside of work. And this is my family. I told the same story this morning, but these are my daughters. Cameron, in the top left, that's a punishment for her, taking a picture nose to nose with me to post on Instagram. That all of her friends follow me, so it was good. My daughter Aniston, who's 16, this is my family. And our daughters Tatum and Ellis on the top right. And then I have 3 brothers and my father, and then an uncle who I consider a brother too. These are the most important people to me in my life, the people that I want to impact the most. And that's what we'll talk a little bit about today. So I want you to think about, for a minute, in your own organizations, in your professional life, could you name the top employees of your organization? The top 10, 15% of your employees. Could you name them? If I asked you to write them down right now, could you put those all down? So if you wrote those people down, on a column next to that, you don't have to shout them out. Could you write down all the ways that you've told them that they're the top employees at your organization? Do we do a pretty good job of that? Sometimes. Could we do better at it? Raise your hand if you have blocked time off in your calendar to recognize the best employees at your organization. I should have brought prizes for you guys. You totally screwed this up. There wasn't supposed to be anybody with hands up. But the reality is we don't do that, right? We don't block time because this is who we're spending our time on. We're spending our time on the people who are not advancing our organizations forward, who are undermining everything that we're doing, and who are our constant problems. Meanwhile, our high-performing employees just kind of sitting out there for the most part. We've got to do a better job as leaders of focusing the time on what's right and the people who are making our organizations move forward. So just a little bit of information on appreciation and recognition. Why it's important: employees who don't feel adequately recognized are twice as likely to say they'll quit in the next year. Think about that impact on your organization if you're not spending that time. True recognition increases productivity, loyalty to the company, and it leads to higher retention. I would tell you, too, that according to Gallup, the most effective recognition is honest and it's authentic. If you don't have some sort of a way to do a recognition profile at your organization to understand how people want to be recognized, because some people are different. Some people want you to stand up at a staff meeting and say, stand up, I want to recognize you for the work that you're doing. If that person hates that kind of recognition and you recognize them at a staff, you've completely just backfired your recognition opportunities. You have to understand how people want to be recognized at your organization. Only 3 in 10 U.S. employees strongly agree that they have received recognition in the last 7 days. That's pretty sad. And again, we know why, because we get busy dealing with the things that are broken and trying to fix them in our work. There's a gap in the perception between employees and their leaders. This comic says, of course, we offer employee recognition. Each week we single out someone and highlight their performance. So our perception of what we do to recognize people oftentimes is not aligned with what people need from a recognition perspective, and that's something that we have to recognize. It's not a natural skill, it has to be taught. There's a wrong way to do recognition, and we could spend a ton of time talking about this, and I know you can't see all that, but I know none of you have ever done this before, thrown an employee appreciation party and asked people to pay for their meal. Right? There's a wrong way to do employee recognition. And these are the sorts of things that can backfire for you. This is a real transparent slide of our organization, the organization that I work with. Really glad this is being streamed live on Facebook Live. Hope nobody's watching. These were our recognition results when we did an employee engagement survey back in 2016. These two lines right here are our front office and our back office staff in regards to how well we did from a recognition perspective at our organization. That's the 4th and the 2nd percentile. That's not good. That's not good. This is what our physicians thought we did from a recognition perspective. Problem? It's recognizing the true recognition opportunity. So, top 5 workplace incentives. Money? Is that really going to drive somebody? Is it going to keep somebody at your organization? Probably not. Morale building team meetings. It's one of the top 5. Public praise. Some people like it, some people don't. Promotions. The ability to do something more if I'm doing my job. I have the ability to climb and grow in the organization as a way to engage your employees. Top 2 are really, really simple, and we don't spend time doing it. It's proven consistently in Gallup information. Personal thank yous from managers, written thank yous. Who writes thank you notes? God, you guys are like backfiring my whole plan. Like, you don't need me. I'm done. See ya. Yeah. But taking the time to write thank you notes to staff that make a difference is really important. I know this doesn't feel like any of your offices. Complaints and gratitude. I think it'd be fun sometime to put one of those little stations outside of my office, like the driver's license has, where they take a number and then there's a number over top that says, okay, I can shout out number 10, and people can come in. Like, this is the reality of how we spend our days, like, constantly being bombarded with the stuff that's wrong and we need to fix it and that sort of thing. Do you think our staff feels that way sometimes? Think about schedulers at your organization. How oftentimes it happens all the time in our organization, but how oftentimes at your place does a physician walk up to a scheduler and say, you know what, my clinic went really, really well today. I just want to thank you for doing your job really, really effectively, and you just keep on going. That happen a lot? Never, it doesn't happen, right? But we're really quick to let them know if we have too many patients on our schedule or not enough patients on our schedule or that sort of thing. We're not doing a good enough job of spending time on the good stuff that's happening. So again, I have 4 daughters. I am blessed with the fact that 3 of them are pitchers. Blessed that 3 of them are pitchers. Everybody thinks they're a pitcher when you get into softball or baseball, especially in softball. Everybody thinks they're a pitcher. My wife was a pitcher in college. We've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars trying to teach our kids how to pitch, how to actually pitch. Not throw, but to pitch. There's a difference. It has to be taught. Now, we could have saved all those hundreds and hundreds of dollars by them actually listening to my wife, if she knows what she's talking about. But the truth is, there's a lot of people that know how to throw a ball, but do they know how to pitch? It's the same thing with recognition. You've got to understand the difference. This is not, so I'm just going to talk for just a minute or two about thank you notes. There's a wrong way to thank people, right? Have you ever gotten a thank you note? This isn't a real one, I made it up. Have you ever gotten a thank you note from someone that just said, thank you for all you do at our organization? What does that mean? Like, does that make you go, oh my God, I'm staying at that organization forever? Like, there's a right way and a wrong way to write thank you notes. The right way to write thank you notes isn't by text message, isn't by Snapchat. It's not even by email. The best way to do it is by taking the time to write something specific to what people did. So the ideal thank you note, timely, do it right away. Don't wait for a month later. Recognize it right away. Handwritten, short in length, includes specific behavior, and it's sent to the home. It's the best way to write thank you notes. Don't drop it off on their desk, send it to their home address. You can't see this really well, but this is the coolest thank you note I've ever received in my entire career. It was from the CEO of the hospital I worked with. She wrote it to my kids. It says, Dear Aniston, Cameron, and Ellis, I want to let you know your daddy works very hard. You should be very proud of him. Sent it to my home. I don't work for this woman anymore. I meet with her about every 2 weeks still. She made that big of an impact on me and my career. But think about different ways to do this. So you're a leader. You have a responsibility. Vernon talked about it. You have a responsibility to make a difference for people. There's all sorts of different things you can do. Set time to write thank you notes. Have a thank you note grid for your supervisors and managers to report to you how many thank you notes they wrote to staff at home. Hold them accountable for it. The reality is, block time to do it. Nobody is going to leave your organization because you just thank them way too much. Has anybody ever left because that praise just got way overwhelming? I had to stop. Set time to do it. So, this is the important slide. I'm going to switch over to the personal side. Think about somebody in your life who's positively impacted you. Think about some of the people who are the most important in your life. Raise your hand if you have time carved out on your calendar to write them thank you notes. How come? Because we're too busy, right? Use the same thing in your personal life and watch the difference that it makes. These are the important people in my life. My parents, my family, my kids. That's my mentor that hired me into healthcare. If you're not taking the time to recognize them and thank them for the impact that they made, then you're losing an opportunity. We should be just as concerned about this part of thank yous as we are professionally as well, too. It's not just at work. Make a difference. Connect people to purpose. Write thank you notes. Write thank you notes to a teacher, coach, your family. Think about those of you that have kids. We can be really hard on our kids at times, right? How often do we tell them the good stuff that they're doing? It's like the schedulers. We hold them to a pretty high standard, don't we? How often are we telling our kids the good things that they're doing? Think about it at home. Block time to do this. I'll share with you just a couple quick stories. This is a note that we did at our organization where we had an opportunity for everybody to recognize each other during a staff celebration week. This is a thank you note that I got from one of our staff that had been there for 14 years. It just says, for everything you juggle, for work hours and after work hours, for all of your efforts and hard work that you put into making our office a great place to work and improving our culture. You motivate me, and I truly appreciate you, and I'm so glad that you're here. I didn't expect to get any of them during the week. That thing's sitting on my bulletin board in my office. It means a lot. But what means the most to me is this one. I write thank you notes to my kids. I found this in my bathroom one day when I was getting ready to go to work. This is from my daughter, Ellis, 11 years old. It says, "Dear Daddy, I love you very much. I'm just writing because you always do to us. And so now I am doing it for you. I love you, Daddy," and turn to the back. Like I didn't know what to do. Know that you are the best daddy ever. You're daddy waddy. I don't know what that means, but I hold on to that one. People are watching what you do at home and at work. Make sure you're spending time doing the things that make an impact on people. I think about, personally for me, I've had some things going on for me personally. I was having these weird visual issues. I was having like blind spots in my eyes, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, 42 years old, I'm too young for any of this. I had to go get an MRI on my head, and I was like actually kind of scared about it. I was like, whoa, what, a little bit scared about it. I went in, did the MRI, and honestly, like the whole time leading up to it, I was thinking, wow, this could be something like serious. And it makes you think about, like, how have I recognized people? Have I made an impact? Have I told people that have made an impact on me? Like, why do we wait for instances like that to spend time on those sorts of things? Now, luckily, my MRI was fine, and I'm good, and I think it was just migraines or stress from my work. I don't know. But what if it wasn't? What if you were like my friend who's 45 years old who just got told a year ago she has stage 4 lung and brain cancer? Would you think differently about how you recognize people and the conversations you have with people at that time? And my challenge to you would be, why do we wait for that stuff to happen? Why did I wait for her to have stage 4 cancer for me to tell her the impact she had on my career? It shouldn't be that way. We should block time to do it at work, but more importantly, we should block time to do it at home. Thanks.
Ryan, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Just by show of hands, how many people here might be willing to commit right now to going to their office for the rest of this week and maybe writing a note to somebody who's done a great job in their office? Great. Thank you, Ryan. Our last speaker, his name is Kermit Glenn Smith, and he's got a great story that he wanted me to share with you. Kermit, when he was in college, had a professor. It was a very tough class. He was turning in a big term paper. There was a lot of pressure. The professor told him that if he dressed up as Kermit the Frog, that he would get an automatic A. And, being the high standard ethical guy he is, he showed up dressed as Kermit the Frog, and he got an A. So that's a great story. I love it. Thank you, Kermit, for sharing that. He's also known as Coach K, and his presentation today is called Bones of Contention, the 4 R's to Avoid for a Healthy Relationship. He will discuss the escalation pattern, the 4 R's, that every professional needs to be aware of and avoid to ensure that the bones of the workplace relationships stay healthy and strong to support an environment of productivity, personal value, and job satisfaction. Please welcome Coach K.
Thank you, good morning, and welcome. As Ron mentioned, my name is Kermit, and just in case any of you were wondering, that really is my name. And also in case any of you were wondering, unfortunately, no, I no longer have the frog suit. Although I wish I did, because I think that would have made quite an impact if I'd have shown up in that. I'm a strategic intervention coach, and I specialize in relationships and communication. And what I'm going to be talking about today is this escalating pattern that can occur in our communications. It builds up and it creates these bones of contention that ultimately cause the relationship to fail. So, why is communication so important? If you think about it, the quality of our lives is really the quality of our communication. How we communicate with ourselves and others is really what determines what anything means. And that meaning is what creates the emotions that we feel. And emotions are the fuel of our actions, right? And all of our outcomes are really based on all the actions that we take. This process I'm going to talk about this morning, it was actually discovered by 2 relationship therapists who were married. And they ended up getting divorced. They continued to work together because they really wanted to understand why 2 experts in the field who people paid to have them coach them on their relationships, to tell them how they can be successful, ended up not being successful in their own relationship. And what they ended up discovering was this pattern. They ended up calling it the 4 R's. So I don't drink and I don't smoke. What do I do? Well, a strategic interventionist is really kind of just a glorified way of saying that people pay me to help them help themselves. More importantly, I'm a husband. My wife, she is an amazing, incredible woman. She is talented, she's creative, she's funny. She didn't pay me to say any of this. And thankfully, she's also very understanding and forgiving. I am the very proud father of 2 outstanding young men who they regularly school me, and not just in video games, but also with the authentic communication of their hearts. I'm also a writer, a speaker, and I'm a board game enthusiast. In fact, if you've been around the hotel the past couple of days, you may have noticed me and my boys sequestered at a table, laughing and oftentimes arguing over some obscure rule book. Speaking of my boys, and just to be clear, this is not a picture of them. Okay? When they were really young, they really got into this show. You may have heard of it, called Power Rangers. I mean, they were into it. They had the toys, the clothes, the jammies, the bedding, the posters, the DVDs with the shows on them. so we could watch the same one over and over and over again. The thing was, they really enjoyed it, and they were very enthusiastic about it. And their enthusiasm was really infectious. And so I ended up enjoying the show as well. Except for one little thing. This pattern that kept happening in every show, repeating over and over again. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but this is what happens in every single show. Eventually the monster shows up, and it's normal sized. And then the Power Rangers are, it's morphin' time! And they jump in their really cool spandex suits, and they come running down there, and they start battling it out. And without fail, every single time the monster, he grows and becomes ginormous. And so the Power Rangers, they run over and they get in their equally ginormous Megazord. And they come back and they start battling it out again. In the middle of the city. Right? Eventually, after about half of the buildings have been destroyed, they reach inside and they pull out their Ultra Mega Man Megazord sword and they, bam! Monster beaten, problem solved. And my boys are like, yay, Power Rangers. And I'm like, really? I mean, come on, guys, this happens every single time. After this time, haven't you learned? How about this time when the monster shows up? You guys go over there and you get in that giant Megazord, and you come over there and you take care of that problem, right? From the very beginning. Why didn't they do that? And I started thinking, why don't we do that? Why don't we deal with the monsters when they're little? Why do we wait until they're the size of Godzilla and they're rampaging through downtown Tokyo, or even worse, our workplace? In business, relationships are really the bones of any business. The way we communicate with our customers, both internal and external, that's what creates the framework, the skeleton that supports anything that we want to create or sustain. Communication is the way we move those bones, right? It's the way that we move the people in the relationships. Poor communication equals poor movement. And what happens to bones when you start moving them poorly? Well, eventually you get an injury. Sometimes you fall. Sometimes things break. One of the easiest tools that I've found to really deal with these monsters, to keep them small, to keep the bones of our relationship strong and healthy, is this process, the 4 R's. The first R is resistance, or it's when something happens. You know, a coworker, a boss, a manager, somebody says or does something that it kind of irritates us. It annoys us. It creates some resistance inside of us. But at this point, we don't want to communicate it. We keep it internal. We're almost afraid that if we do speak about it, we'll end up making it bigger. And so we decide at this point, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to take a nice, big, deep breath and move on. And then it happens again. And it happens again. And it happens again. And now, because we haven't dealt with it, now all we've done is feed that monster. And the monster does what all good little monsters do when you feed it, right? It starts to grow. And now it turns into the second R. Resentment, or at this stage, we're not just annoyed anymore. Now we're starting to get angry. Now we're starting to get pissed off that this keeps happening. At this stage, you have some chance of at least kind of dealing with the monster a bit. The emotion about it has gotten big enough that will actually threshold. You know, we want to talk about it. We want to let the person know that this is upsetting us. The problem is that energy that we bring with that, anger and frustration, usually elicits the same response in the person we're trying to communicate with. They end up getting angry and defensive. And then, unfortunately, things don't really get resolved. You may feel like you've cleared the air. The person may feel heard, but they don't really feel understood. And when it comes to relationships, understanding is critical. If you don't understand me, I don't really feel that you can relate to how I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing. And if you can't relate, there's no relationship. And again, this monster hasn't been taken care of, so it keeps feeding, it keeps gnawing away at you, and it turns in the third R, rejection or at this point, we're not just angry anymore, now we're hurt. We don't feel like the person cares enough to really understand what we're experiencing. It doesn't seem like they want to connect with us. The strategy at this point is one of separation. We reject the other person. Gone are the social communications that happen in the workplace. We're no longer stopping by their cubicle or their office and saying, hey, how you doing? How are things going? How's the wife? How are the kids? Do you need anything? Can I help? When it comes to the workplace, these types of social interactions are really the canary in the mine shaft. If that's dead, the relationship's dying as well. This monster actually has the best chance of getting some resolution, being taken care of. At our core, we're really about connection. We love connecting with people, right? And the separation causes enough pain that somebody will usually extend an olive branch. They'll wave the white flag. They'll reach out to the other person. And because of that way that they're reaching out, they're kind of open, they're caring, and the other person has a tendency to respond the same way. They reach out, and they're open as well. And that creates a feeling that this person cares, they understand what we're going through, they can relate to us, and the relationship is reestablished. But that's not always the way we respond to this monster, is it? Sometimes our response is, you know what? You don't want to talk to me? I don't want to talk to you even more. You know, in fact, this is great. This is perfect. I'm going to get even more done now that I don't have to listen to what's happening with your kids or listening what your plans for the weekend are. Oh, I can't wait to see how much work I get done now. The thing is, though, it's not perfect, and it's not productive. And now, this monster is going to grow into the biggest and most dangerous monster of all. Repression, or this monster is really deceptive. On the outside, it looks like everything's fine. Things have been resolved. People have decided to put everything behind them and just move on. But nothing has been resolved. What's happened is that people have become resigned. They're resigned to things not changing, nothing ever happening, the relationship not growing. And if there's one thing that's true in life, if things aren't growing, they're dying. If your relationship isn't growing, it's dying. If your business isn't growing, it's dying. And at this point with this monster, the clock's really ticking. This monster, it gets taken care of. Somebody on either side of the relationship is going to call it quits. So the thing is that it really goes deeper than just these kind of social interactions we've been talking about. Really consider, what cost does it have to our business when we've got monsters like this running around? What does it cost to performance, job satisfaction, productivity, morale, absenteeism, retention? So the thing is, of course, we don't want to have these monsters in our business area. So what really is the best way of dealing with them? Now that we understand this life cycle, what causes them to grow, how do we keep them small? The thing is, we've got to focus. We've got to focus on opening people, not just doors. What good is an open door policy if the person who comes through that door doesn't feel that we're open to listening to them and to understanding what they need? We have to remember that what we look for, we find. What we listen for, we hear. And what we expect is exactly what we experience. It's about embracing the idea of positive intent, that behind all of this resistance and resentment and rejection is someone just like us. Someone who, more than anything, just wants to know, or at least feel that they're successful, that they add value, and that they make a real contribution. And we need to use the three most important bones in our body. We need to use our backbone. What we're talking about here is really emotional fitness. And like physical fitness, you don't just go to the gym once and then you're fit for life. Although, boy, that would really cool. You know. It's about discipline. It's about conditioning. The second thing is we need to use our funny bone. When things are stressful, when there's a lot of tension, nothing breaks that pattern. Nothing breaks somebody's state like humor, like laughter. I mean, do you really know anybody who authentically can stay angry and laugh at the same time? I mean, maybe outside the joker, that guy's insane. You really don't want him working for you. And lastly, we really need to use our wishbone. We need to create a vision for our relationships, our outcomes, our communication, one that's transformational, is empowering, and is fulfilling for everyone involved. Thank you.
Great presentations today. So just to review, let's go over Vernon's real quick. We got the O.D.D method: observe, decide, and dream. And I think everybody's hand went up. They were going to write a letter. And then we got the 4 R's, right? We got resistance, resentment, rejection, and repression. So we can recognize those monsters before they get too big. I do have one problem with the presentations this morning. There's an image in my head I can't get out. I'm picturing Ryan dressed as Kermit the Frog singing Bon Jovi on Air Force One. It's bothering me. Can we please have a round of applause for these folks? They did a great job. Thank you.